Good evening, everybody. Thank you for attending our Gasp 101 webinar. We're going to get started in just a second. I'll be sharing my screen. All right. So welcome everybody to Gasp 101, how to make a difference in an hour a month. This is our first offering for National Prevention Week, which is a national observance that we follow and observe every year. So this week we have a great lineup of different educational opportunities for people, and we're kicking things off tonight with this presentation. Now, some of you may be familiar with Gasp and what we do, but we're hoping that some people who maybe aren't as familiar get an opportunity to see this and learn a little bit more about what we do. And if it sounds good, maybe they'll get involved. So that's our hope. And please check back on our Facebook page for some of the other offerings we have this week. Tomorrow night, we're having an in-person suicide prevention talk. I am hosting that with Tracy Boisel. She's a board member for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. That will be at 6:30 at the Groton Senior Center. And then, of course, we have other virtual offerings as well, including vaping and naloxone and overdose reversal. And of course, the Grasso Tech students are hosting a recovery fest. And then we're ending the week having a Gasp luncheon at the Fisherman. So we're very excited. So without further ado, let's get started with today's presentation. My name is Carolyn Wilson. I am the coordinator for Gasp. I've been at Ledgelight for over 11 years, and I'm thrilled to be telling you a little bit about what we do. So to kick things off, let's talk a little bit about the history of Gasp. So Gasp has been around since about 1999, so over 22 years. And Gasp is a program of Ledgelight Health District. So what does that mean? So Ledgelight Health District is obviously the public health entity that serves the southern part of New London County. And we have many different health programs that we run out of our office, and Gasp happens to be one of them. It's one of the older programs that we have, one of the longest lasting. So that's important to know. This has been a program that has stuck around for a long time. And we believe that one of our strengths is our association with Ledgelight Health District, of course, and we're better for it, for sure. So Gasp started by some concerned citizens and some town employees who were interested in the prevention of substance use with youth. And the first step was to identify the problem and to gather data. And then, of course, grant writing to get some funding to run the program. So we were very successful in that early on. And we're going back to the turn of the century, in the year 2000. Gasp was one of the early recipients of the Drug-Free Communities Grant program and had that grant for 10 years. So that was a huge accomplishment, and a lot of great work happened out of that grant. And again, it was a partnership between Groton Human Services and Ledgelight Health District and other town employees and educators and concerned citizens. So a big part of coalition work happens to be collaboration. So it's important to recognize that a lot of people worked together to get Gasp started. As I mentioned, one of the backbones of our program is data. So we have to have data to show that there's a problem. We have to have data to show that we're making a difference. And to get that data, one of the things that we do is surveys. So every 2 years in the middle and the high school level, we do a youth survey. It's called the Groton Youth Survey. We've been doing it for many years, and we work very closely with our evaluator, Archie Swindell, who helps write the survey and helps us administer the survey, and of course, analyzes the survey. And he's been with the program for a very long time, and we are very lucky to have him. We also do a community survey. We pretty much do that every 2 years as well, usually during the same year as we do our youth survey. And the idea with that is to get some data straight from youth about their attitudes, perceptions, behaviors, and then also do the same with adults and parents especially. So those are our two main sources of primary data that we collect. We also gather data from other sources when we are doing our needs assessments. So we'll gather hospital data, school data, national trends, Connecticut trends. We will get disciplinary data. We will get different screening data from our school-based health centers. We collect a lot of data. And another way we get data is through focus groups and key informant interviews. So basically, we're looking to paint a picture of what's going on, what are the problems, the specific problems in Groton, and then of course, from there, we can figure out how we want to address them. So everything comes back to data, very important that we talk about that. We're actually right now in the midst of collecting our 2022 youth survey data, and then shortly after that, we will be collecting our community data. So stay tuned for both of those. And then of course, technical assistance. Anytime a coalition is starting, you're gonna need some help, right? You're gonna need some assistance, you're gonna need some guidance, training, things like that. And Gasp is lucky to have technical assistance from different sources. Our funder currently is the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, and they provide us with a lot of technical assistance. We also get technical assistance from our Regional Behavioral Health Action Organization, and they're called CRAC. We also get some additional help from the Prevention Technical Training and Assistance Service Center, TTASC. They are a grant-funded entity that their primary focus is to help funded coalitions. And they provide trainings and they help us with important documents and all sorts of things. So we get a lot of help during our work. Now, even as an established coalition and an experienced coordinator, we still need help with things. And we're constantly learning and constantly improving how we do things. So we are not, while we are experts, we're continually learning, and that's important to note. So a little bit about me. I am a health educator by trade. As I mentioned, I've been at Ledgelight Health District for going on 12 years. I can't believe it. I am a prevention specialist. I'm a certified health education specialist. My background is in public health. I have a master's degree in public health. My focus in public health was behavioral science and health promotion. So in my program at New York Medical College, I was actually able to focus on specific things that I wanted to study. And I'm really happy to say that I've been putting them to good use ever since. I also have a certificate in health education in addition to my certification. And I also, when funding allows, provide tobacco cessation. So I've got a lot of things going on. I'm also currently doing some academic detailing work outside of Gasp, where I educate healthcare providers on specific topics in opioid overdose prevention. So very happy to be doing that work. And I've been doing it for a while, and Gasp has been, you know, the rock, the main part of my work for a long time. I actually was introduced to Ledgelight as a volunteer for Gasp with Michelle Hamilton. So we're going back quite a ways, even before I was an employee here. I volunteered at some family nights. So I have a long history with Gasp. So what is the structure of Gasp? How do we function? So coalitions, there are coalitions around the country, around the world, and all of them are a little bit different. Many of them have a couple things in common. If you are fortunate to have grant funding or some sort of source of income, having a paid staff member is very helpful in running a coalition. The other part of it is volunteers or coalition members. So both of those are very important. Now, some coalitions run very well just on volunteers and they don't even have a paid staff member, and that's great. But oftentimes it's helpful to have a paid staff member, especially if you have a grant and grant funding that requires that staff member and that level of leadership. Voluntary membership. So Gasp members are volunteers. Some of them are just community members. Some of them work in the town of Groton or work for the town of Groton. And membership comes from a little bit of everybody. There's youth, there's parents, and then there's all different sector representatives, which I'll talk a little bit about in a second. So as I mentioned, the parent agency for Gasp is Ledgelight Health District. And they also serve as the fiduciary, which basically means the fiscal agent. So Ledgelight writes grants, manages grants, and sees to it that we do what we need to do for the grants and do all the reporting, and then give all of that to the funder. So there's a level of oversight that happens here. Now, for our coalition, we are run by a specific structure, and it's called the Strategic Prevention Framework. And it's a planning model that's used widely in coalitions across the country. And it's considered to be a best practice to follow the Strategic Prevention Framework. And another thing that's important for a coalition is to have people from the different sectors. So when we're talking about membership, I said that we have people from different sectors. Now there's 12 different sectors for different segments of the community. And the philosophy behind it is that to have a well-running coalition and having everybody at the table, you need to have representatives from each sector. And I'm happy to say that Gasp does have membership from all of their sectors. Some of the sectors have more members than others. So we're constantly looking for new members and recruiting more members. I would say right now, the business sector is an area that we're looking to expand for sure. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. So what does Gasp do? So we primarily serve people ages 12 to 20. So that's our focus. And we do that in a couple of different ways. We work with them directly, but we also work with their families and the different places that they spend time, which could be school, which could be the faith community, which could be different community groups, sports teams, volunteer groups, clubs, you name it. Families, certainly we work with parents, and some of our messaging is directly for parents and for families, and some of it's more for youth. So we have different messages for different audiences, of course, and again, I'll talk about that later. Policy work, we are very interested in local policy and making sure that our policies are prevention informed and that we make good decisions about our environment. We want people to be healthy and safe. So those are sort of the things that we advocate for. We focus on things that are local, but we're also concerned with what happens on the state level and on the national level as well. So, you know, that's part of what we do, is we're concerned with how policy affects prevention. So there are some limitations on what we can and can't do with that because of our funding source, but those are always things that we're thinking about and monitoring. We do a lot of education, and that happens in a lot of different ways. If you're familiar with Gasp, you know that we have a lot of education campaigns and social marketing campaigns, and that we have those in different places in the community. So for instance, we're well known to have posters in the schools with facts on them or statistics. We also sometimes will go into the schools and be like a guest speaker in a health class. Sometimes we provide schools with curriculum or activities. And that's just some of the things that we do. Sometimes we have bulletin boards and you know, all sorts of things in the community. Outreach. We try to go to many events and we try to be visible in the community. So we'll go to community events when they happen. I know for the past couple of years, we haven't had a lot of events, but they're starting to be more now. So we will try to be at most of the community events and some of the school events, open houses, things like that. So we do a lot. And it depends, you know, what we're working on at the time and who our audience is, but we're out there and pretty visible. So how do we do this? How does Gasp do our work? For one thing, we have monthly coalition meetings, and those last about an hour. And right now we do them on the third Monday of the month at noon. And as you can imagine, for the past couple of years, we've been mostly virtual, doing virtual meetings, which works fine. It's very convenient. It's accessible for a lot of people, but I think some people get burnt out with that sometimes. So we're hoping for some in-person events and meetings in the future. We also have 2 active subcommittees, which are part of Gasp, and they specialize in 2 things. One is education and the other one is social marketing. And I say 2 main committees because we'll also occasionally have ad hoc committees that pop up, like policy or needs assessment or things like that. At one point we had an executive committee. We currently don't have an active executive committee, but we do a lot of work through subcommittees. Technical assistance, as I mentioned, we have many technical assistance partners who help us do our work. We have TTask, as I mentioned, we have DEMIS, we have CRAC, all of these different agencies that help us. And we're better for it. Whenever we have a question or we need to troubleshoot, they're always there for us. So we have experts at the ready to help us do what we need to do. Funding. So as I mentioned, Gasp has been around for 22 years. And one of the reasons we've been successful and have had that longevity is because of funding. So we are primarily grant funded. We do not do any direct fundraising. Right now, our main source of funds is grants. And that's great when you have grants, but we also have to think about, you know, sustainability planning and things of that nature. So grant funding is great when you have it, and sometimes things can change when you don't have it. So it's something we always need to think about. We've been fortunate with grant funding. We're currently funded through 2024 with DEMIS, but we always wonder what the future holds and what our options are for maintaining our funding. So something we always think about. And then, of course, I mentioned the strategic prevention framework. We use this model that guides our work, and our logo actually almost sort of looks like the strategic prevention framework model a little bit, which is nice. So that's pretty much how we do things. We've got a structure, we have funding, we have assistance and help, and then we have the members who make the magic happen through subcommittees and monthly meetings. So that's the simple way to describe it. So how do we do it, right? So once we have a structure for how we do things, what do we actually do? What do we need to be successful? So currently, we have completed a needs assessment, a recent needs assessment. That's something that needs to be updated every few years. Sometimes with different grant cycles, it can be updated. A strategic plan, which is informed by the needs assessment and focuses on what the problems are and what the possible solutions could be. Implementation plans basically talk about the activities that are involved in the strategies you've selected. We're working on ours right now. And then, of course, an evaluation plan, which can be, how are you going to measure your success? So that's something very important we work on with our technical assistance providers and with our evaluator. As I mentioned, data. We can't do anything without data. So the information we collect through various sources informs our work. So that's how we figure out what we need to do. And it can also help us figure out what might be the most successful way to go about that. So again, when we do our strategies, we also want to collect data, process evaluation, some people call it, about what we're doing to see if we need to change anything or make anything better. So constantly data is important. Some people will collect satisfaction surveys about programs, do focus groups about campaigns. We constantly want to know if we need to change anything and if people like what we're doing. Schools, we do work with some schools. We are not in the schools, meaning I am not a school employee, as I mentioned, but we will do guest lecturing. We partner with the schools. They host our campaigns. They help us implement our surveys. We have a very strong partnership with the schools. We're happy to work with them when it's convenient, but we also don't want to disrupt any of their instructional time. Schools are very busy places with lots of things going on. So we always want to be a complement and not a burden. So we're very careful not to overstay our welcome, but to always help when we can. Parents, obviously, depending on what we have going on and the messaging that needs to happen, we need parents involved, right? So there's, especially with, say, for instance, our underage drinking work, family norms is a risk factor that we're looking at. And in our past grant, we were also working with parents on family norms again, for prescription drugs and cannabis. So there's a lot of work and a lot of need for parents to be involved. So that's another area we're always looking for more help in. I'm happy to say we have a nice relationship with the Groton Middle School PTO, and you know, always looking for more help. So if you're a parent, we'd love to have you, hour a month. Community events. We do a lot of community events. We host them, we attend them. It's been a weird couple of years for events, but things are getting back to normal. This week is a good example. We've got some online events, some in-person events, and we of course attend whenever we can all the other great things going on in the community. And then our partnerships. We partner with other like-minded organizations. We partner with some treatment and recovery related organizations as well, in addition to all of our coalition members. We are very closely connected with the town of Groton and the city of Groton and all the different agencies that serve the area for sure. So we have a lot of strategies, a lot of things, and a lot of it depends on what our grant funding is for and what our plans are. So let's talk a little bit about the work. Campaigns. We do educational campaigns, we do social marketing campaigns. Again, the campaign is going to probably be targeted at somebody, right? So we have certain messages that may be more appropriate for parents and some for youth. So we're very mindful of where our campaigns and our messaging goes, make sure it reaches the right person. We also do targeted audiences, like right now we're looking at retailers and establishments for our underage drinking work, focusing on retail availability. So if you or someone you know works in the, the beverage industry, we'd love to speak with them and have them involved. So you hear us talk about in prevention policy a lot. Policy is long-term sustainable change. So we love policy. Policy doesn't usually cost a lot of money. It lasts a long time, and it really can have the most impactful, lasting results. So what are some of the policies we look at? Tobacco and vaping, alcohol, marijuana, cannabis, or THC products, smoke, vape, and drug-free parks and public spaces, zoning ordinances, and just ordinances. So there's a lot of things that we look at and that we advocate for. Currently, one of the hot button items that we're looking at are smoke and vape and drug-free public parks and spaces in Groton. That's something that came up last fall, and we talked to town council about it. And I believe there's an opportunity for that to go forth and become an ordinance if there's public support for it. Zoning, that's something that can be very important in prevention. where certain establishments can be located or allowed in a community. Another ordinance we worked on once was the BYOB ordinance relating to the hookah lounge and other BYOB establishments. That was something that we worked on and assisted with. So you can see there's a lot of things to consider, and a lot of this needs public support and advocacy work. All right, so call to action. The title of this presentation is Gasp 101, How to Make a Difference in an Hour a Month. So we are always looking for new members, and it doesn't take much to be a member. All you have to do is basically get on an email list, and you can be involved. And you don't have to show up to meetings all the time. Of course, we'd love to have you, but you can follow along through email and obviously work with me and partnerships, right? So, you know, are you an organization that wants to support prevention? We would love to have your support. We're not really looking for financial support. We just need support and empowerment and, you know, just more people on our side to help us advocate for what we do. Sector experts. So again, those 12 sectors, pretty much whatever you do, we probably could use you. And I say use, meaning we would benefit from having you on our team. So, you know, if you are in any sort of sector, let's talk. Let's talk about how you can help with Gasp. Influencers, we hear a lot about that word now, and it's kind of an interesting thing, but when it comes to prevention, influencers can be really important, and that could be peer youth influencers, it could be parent influencers, anybody who sort of helps create the norms in town. Coaches are influencers, businesses are influencers. So I would say that that's a big one, and anybody who really wants to be an influencer can be. Social media. We always need help on social media. We are constantly putting out content on Facebook and Instagram. We're doing a little bit of TikTok now. We have a Twitter. We even have a Pinterest. And those are our main channels. We also have YouTube. And we're also always looking for help with that. So sharing and liking and commenting, those things really add up. They really make a difference. Phone calls. You may not have a lot of time, but maybe you know some people who could be really helpful to Gasp. Maybe you know some business owners in town. A couple emails, couple phone calls, that could be really helpful. Making introductions and that can be really helpful, especially in this type of work. So if you're somebody who knows a lot of people, come on down. We'd love to talk with you. Decision maker outreach. Are you the type of person who likes to write to the newspaper or emails your town councilors a lot? If you're the type of person who's civically engaged and is passionate, we would love to have you. We would love to have you. And prevention involves so many different things, and most people are very supportive of prevention. So we'd love to talk with you and see if we can find some common ground. So ways to get involved. As I mentioned, if you want to be a Gasp member, all you have to do is join our email list and stay connected. So this is my contact information. I'm very easy to get a hold of. Of course, find us on social media. As I mentioned, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and what's the one I'm forgetting? YouTube. And then, of course, that's our handle, Groton Prevents. So some of this you may already know the answer to, but these are some of the questions I get asked very frequently. Is Gasp a 501c3? We are not a 501c3. We are a program of Ledgelight Health District that I mentioned earlier. We're technically a nonprofit, but we don't have any of that nonprofit structure. We don't have a board of directors. We don't have to report, but we are under the umbrella of Ledgelight Health District, and they're a nonprofit government entity. So we do not have our own status as a 501c3. Is Gasp in the schools? I get that question all the time. And I say yes, but I always say that I'm not a school employee. We work with the schools. We add complementary programming and information, but I'm not a health teacher, although I am very friendly with the health teachers in Groton. So we also work with teen clubs. So right now at Grosso Tech, there's a club called Students for Recovery. And up at Fitch High School, there is a group called SAD, Students Against Destructive Decisions. We work with those groups. And so we work with the schools alongside them. We assist them with whatever they need. And we're there to support them, and they support us back. So we have a great relationship. But I don't spend my days in the schools typically. It's just a special occasion that I'm in the schools. Presentations, assemblies, observance weeks, things like that. Will Gasp change its name? So Gasp has already changed its name over the years. So Gasp used to be the Groton Adolescent Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition, and the acronym was GASP. Then in, I believe, 2015, 2016, we changed it to the Groton Alliance for Substance Abuse Prevention, cut down a couple of words. Now, we are thinking about changing our name again, and not drastically, but to reflect some of the changes that we're seeing in the prevention field and in the treatment and recovery field. And it's about language and sensitivity. So right now, our name is Groton Alliance for Substance Abuse Prevention. We don't include the A in our acronym because it's like a little a, not a big A. But we're talking about either changing the word abuse to either misuse or use. So that's something we're currently thinking about doing in the future. Excuse me, in the future. We haven't decided yet that we're doing it, but I think we probably will. So I would say by June 30th, if we're going to do it, we will do it. And not much will change. Our logo will need to be updated just a little bit, and it'll just take some getting used to, just like it did when we changed our name the last time. But language matters, as we all know. So making that change would be a reflection of the shift in norms. Is GASP like DARE? I get that all the time. People asking, is GASP DARE? You know, what's going on with that? DARE is a law enforcement program that is for law enforcement only, and they deliver it to schools. I believe the program was intended for 5th grade and 7th graders. I think some school systems only do it with 5th graders now. DARE has evolved over the years and kind of got a bad reputation about something that didn't work. It was, people liked the program, but they didn't think it worked. And that kind of came out of some, I believe, some long-term evaluation that said that on the short-term basis, it was effective, but not really in the long-term basis. And I think there was some challenges there in the evaluation process about whether or not it was an evidence-based curriculum and things like that. I know that over the years, DARE has evolved and has really strengthened its program and become more about decision making, and you know, sort of shook some of that old reputation about just say no and you know, that kind of stuff. So over the years, that program has evolved, and it is a very strong program. And one of the positive things about that program is the relationship that the kids develop with law enforcement that can be very positive. GASP, we respect DARE. We think it's a great program for the kids. They seem to really enjoy it, and they get some positive reinforcement. And we don't really partner with DARE, and we obviously can't use their curriculum because it's for law enforcement only. But we certainly like to complement whatever messaging has happened with DARE, especially with those 5th graders, because we usually start 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So for most of our 6th graders, they will have already had DARE, and so they've already had a little bit of exposure to prevention. So we really don't have anything in common other than many of the officers who teach DARE serve on our coalition, and we're friendly and we're supportive. But the officers in Groton do a great job with DARE, so we're happy that that program is there. It seems to be very positive for the kids. So those are some of our frequently asked questions. I really appreciate people watching this, and please contact me if you have any additional questions. I'm happy to, give you more information about any of this. And please monitor our Facebook page for other offerings this week. We have a lot going on and we'd love to have you. So without further ado, thank you so much for watching. We hope you learned something about Gasp, and we hope that you'll join us. We've got a lot of work to do and we could use your help and support. So happy Prevention Week, day 1, and we'll see you out in the community. Have a great night. Thank you.